Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of the Desert Tiger Podcast here with me, your host, Colton Geschwantner. First and foremost, before we kick things off, I want to go ahead and mention that this podcast is a fan and listener supported podcast. We couldn't do this without you guys. If you're a returning listener, thank you so much. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I ask that you please consider hitting the follow or subscribe button, and if you enjoy what you hear, please consider sharing it with your friends or on your social media, because that helps us out so very much in reaching more people. Alright, let's kick off this episode!
Music, athletics, arts, and entertainment. The Desert Tiger Podcast with Colton Geschwantner.
And just like you heard, this is the DTP, the show where we like to, every single week on Thursday, get into the inspiration, the motivation, the passion, the story, and the glory, the nitty and the gritty behind some of the hottest rising and some of the most storied musicians, authors, artists, athletes, and all of that and we package it up to you with a nice and pretty bow. This week on the show, I have all five members of the band, the Faceplants, and we are going to get into the entire history of the band, starting off with where they met in high school for three of the members, of course. That's right, we're going back a while, back to 2012. I mean, I know that's not a while for some of you, but I mean, in terms of artistry and creating, that can be quite some time, and we're going to get into the story behind their first EP and how after that, they have been forming a new sound, a new idea, an entirely new force behind them, and the only name that they felt truly captivated that sound was Animalistic. That's right, we're going to speak to the Faceplants today all about their brand new album, Animalistic, and what it means to all of them, not only as musicians and artists, but also how it has captured the growth of the members of this band over the last 6 years of creating not only this idea, but forming the passion that they have together to create this unique sound and do what they feel is truly trailblazing. Discovering one's identity is never something that comes easily. And finding your voice isn't something that happens overnight. It cannot be faked or fabricated, forced or fought. It comes in times when you least expect. It's formed in the struggle in times of desperation and sacrifice, glory and success. And yes, I stole that right from the lining of Animalistic itself because it is beautiful. So, before we get into this interview with all of the members of Animalistic, and I let them tell you themselves what this album truly means to them, and how they have discovered who they are inside, I'm going to let you listen to one of the tracks off of the brand new album, Animalistic, and if you are somebody who listens to Spotify, you can also find this specific song on Desert Tiger's Canadian rock and roll playlist. This is an amazing track off of this album. I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as I do. This is Who I Am Inside.
Thinking of all the steps to
the Desert Tiger Podcast.
Alright, we are here with the members of the Faceplants. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and what you do in the band, please?
Yeah. My name's Patty, and I play the drums.
My name is Dan, and I am the lead singer.
I am Garrett, and I play guitar.
I'm Graham, and I play the keys.
I'm Chris, and I'm the bass player.
Fantastic. We got the entire group here, is that right?
Yeah.
And we have a dog.
And we got Tucker along for the ride as well, of course.
He's moral support.
Alright, so how did the Faceplants end up coming together? Were you guys in other bands beforehand? How did...
Yeah, so Garrett and
come?
Garrett, the guitar player, and I started jamming. I moved from Winnipeg to Vancouver when I was like 11. And so Garrett and I were just in the same neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Still live in the same neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And we started hanging out, skateboarding together, and we're like, you know, I play bass, you play guitar, let's start jamming. So we just did, it all started with just playing cover tunes of our favorite bands, just like Green Day, The Offspring, Ramones, and stuff. And so that kind of grew into us booking our own kind of local shows, and that was our first taste of kind of independence in the music scene.
Yeah.
And this was in the suburbs of Vancouver. So it really... Playing those shows, original shows, when we were like 15 and 16, really taught us not only independence, but almost how to four-wall. It's called like four-walling it, in the sense of like how to put on a show, and engage an audience, not at a real venue, because the first venues that we played weren't clubs,
like community centers.
They were just little ice. There's like a community center at an ice rink. Those were our first shows, and so. We obviously went to high school together. That back then it was like middle school. We went to high school, went to all the music programs, fell in love even deeper with music, continued to jam. We got Graham along back in high school. He was playing keys, brought him along, and it kind of just developed from there. And so Chris and Patty have been in the band now for around 3-4 years, I'd say, right guys?
Yep.
And we just released our debut LP last month. And so it's
exciting times for us.
Real exciting time. And so it's been an ever-evolving project, the Faceplants, but it's we're comfortable with, you know, really who we are and the songs that we've released at this point. It's taken this long. So.
Yeah, we're very proud of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
If you've put in this much time into it, it means that you've really put a lot into crafting.
Absolutely, man. And along the way, we've really broadened our skill set too, right? So not only, especially nowadays, man, it's like not just about playing your instrument. It's like we're on a tour right now, right? So we're obviously when Kamloops is the first slot of the tour. We booked this whole thing ourselves. Garrett booked this.
Yeah.
You know, and we record our own music and direct our own videos and stuff like that. And you know, I think that's one of the most really, you know, the most important thing I think a band or an artist or somebody creative should really, you know, take in is to understand that you need patience. You know, it was funny, Graham brought this up to our attention the other day, or earlier today, that he saw an old poster of a local show.
Back in local Vancouver show for us.
Yeah, a local Vancouver show. And it was from 2012. And we were friends, and still are friends with all the bands that were on that bill. And we used to be a part of, all those bands back then were a part of this Vancouver scene. And it was funny, Graham looked at that poster and said, you know, none of those bands are together anymore. And I think whether it has to do with patience for those bands or not, I just know that that's a big detriment to a lot of creative people, I think, not understanding how long it may take and understanding that everybody's journey is different. So here we are.
It's very true, because you come up with an idea and in your mind you feel like you should be able to get it out and that it should be exploding within the world.
That's right.
Right away, but a lot of people don't understand the actual work that goes into getting all of these things done. Even just the aspects of booking your own tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That alone, of trying to make sure that you've got the guarantees, the dates, if you're trying to apply for government funding to help with it, you need everything in
setting
line
up the media during the day to promote
exactly.
it, the ads, and it's
just lining up your own schedule, making sure that you're everywhere on time, making sure that you guys are actually have the time to eat food that's
efficient and sustaining
Yes.
so that you aren't just crashing on the road eating
Yeah.
terrible, terrible cheap food.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
We're still working on that
Which
one.
we do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard to avoid.
So
Absolutely.
the thing we notice is it's really funny. It doesn't matter where we are in Canada, because we travel a lot of times. 75% of our traveling is through the middle of the night to get to our next destination, and it never fails. No matter what city we pull into, there's always a Boston Pizza open. So we eat a lot of Boston Pizza on the road.
yeah, Subway, hit us up.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Sponsorship for the tour.
That's
come
right.
on.
Subway
Well,
Boston Pizza.
Actually, this tour we played this actually this really great gig on Canada Day, Surrey, which is a suburb of Vancouver, also.
Yeah.
And just so happened that Tim Hortons was the sponsor of the event or the stage. So when we got our money for the gig, they gave us a $250 Tim Hortons card.
Oh,
so that's our breakfast. So that's what we had for breakfast this morning. That's the breakfast for the next 8 days, I guess. So it's just kind of funny.
As
I
long as
mean, that's a pretty good tour fund for
not
breakfast.
as long as we can budget it out for, we'll have Tim Hortons for breakfast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, talking about back to 2012, were you guys named the Faceplants back
We were.
then?
Yeah, we were. Played different back then, 2012, that's when we released our first EP.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that Animalistic, our debut LP that we released last month, now available everywhere, that is, I'd say, our first real body of work. And, a body of work that we're extremely proud of. And we look back on that first EP, that was our first kind of body of work, and we were still young, obviously that was our first time in studio and working with a producer and booking our tours and stuff, like getting our feet wet and really developing a live show and all these kind of things. So it was important to put out that EP because it got us to develop to the writers that we are today.
Mm-hmm.
But we were called, that was under the Faceplants. That was kind of the first go at recording anything under that name.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm. So, did you guys have any touring under your belt before the recording experience, or did you guys hit the studio first?
No, it was studio first. I think we ended up touring off of that record though, probably 3 times. We kind of did the first ones just from Vancouver to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
A couple times. Actually, I think we only did Vancouver to Winnipeg. Or I don't know, only Vancouver to Winnipeg, I believe, off of that CD. And that was kind of us learning, okay, how do we book a show? Like that first tour, there was a lot of shows where there was only 5 people there. Mm-hmm. And it was the opening band. You know what I mean? But that's, everybody goes through that. You hear stories about that all the time. And just like our EP, we're not super proud of it now, but it's an essential piece of where we are now. And so is those crappy tours, I guess you could say, are our first tours.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's essential building blocks, and it's part of that process of becoming an actual band that knows what you're doing. You have to actually go out there and fail to learn how to succeed sometimes.
Right,
Absolutely.
And it's like 2018 has been our, I would say, most successful year to date, and most exciting year to date. The things that we've been able to accomplish this year alone really outweigh anything we've ever done in the past. And going back to the thing about patience, it's like I can't imagine, there's a lot of people, I think, give up or say goodbye to what they want to do right before I feel something great happens. And it's just like I can just every time I have nightmares sometime being like, what if we didn't have the patience, and what if we put out that EP, went on tour, and we're like, there's 5 people here, forget this, and just gave up. And it's just like we wouldn't be able to enjoy the fruits of our labor in 2018 if we kind of said goodbye back then. And so, we're really, really excited about this year, especially with the album release now. Okay. And this tour is just going to be the best thing that's really we've ever done. Mm-hmm.
So between that EP and this album, did you guys just have a couple singles in between? Did you release any other EPs as well, or
we had
with that?
Yeah, we had a song called "Why," which was kind of a transition period for us.
Yeah,
that was kind of the song was going from the old EP to the kind of the new song, new sound. Sorry. Then we actually released a couple songs as singles, Devil in a White Dress, Unholy. Then we just released The World I Know right before the record drop. And Devil and Unholy are on our LP.
Yes.
So they were just released as singles. I guess you could say that was an in-between, but it was really, Devil was the first look at oh, there's a change here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is totally different now.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, who I am inside also.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you hear about us?
I've heard about you guys toured. I used to live in Regina, and you
Yeah.
guys have toured through quite a few
Oh, yeah.
times. And like my friend Bradley Cole has always been like, "Oh, these guys are fantastic."
Shout out
You
to
guys
Bradley.
need to rep them. So it was just through that, and then like what I had heard that like some of the new tracks, and
Cool.
they're fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome,
So,
man. Thank you so much
as
for
soon
having
as I
us.
heard that you guys were coming through for the music in the park, I was like, I need the email.
Yeah.
Because
Are you coming to the show tonight?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I better be.
Yeah.
Jump in the van, but let's do this.
Yeah,
It's
pop
only
in
a
the
short-
van, we'll
it's
take
only a
you.
short walk down, so
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
pretty excited for that. So
We are too.
for the EP, like everyone says that your first album is sort of like capturing your lives before that moment. But for this album, it's sort of the time in between the albums, and that's why a lot of bands have problems with their second EP or their album, is they seem to find a lot less inspiration.
Sure.
You guys had a lot of time in between this EP and this album to garner a lot of inspiration, and it sounds like there's a lot of soul and message in the album.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, so you obviously hear the cliche thing about like, oh, the band's first album is their best, yeah, because they've had all their life to write it or whatever.
Yes.
But I think there's two things. Like, one, I like to think now, especially with the learning process of Animalistic, I like to, from here on out, I would like to look at every project that we release, an EP album, as like our debut. Like I know I never want to write Animalistic 2.0. I want to completely go to different places with it. Lyrically, story-wise, the way it sounds, the way we present ourselves in the branding. And the reason I want to do that is because that is how I function and feel most satisfied as a creative and as a songwriter. Me personally, it's like the songs on Animalistic and the songs that I write, I am not trying to chase radio. I'm not trying to be like,
Chase a trend or anything.
if this doesn't hit, then I might as well just try and replicate that and just try and follow what's popular. God bless all the people that do that, because that's great. That's fantastic. But that's for me and for us, I feel that doesn't satisfy our craving to be better and to broaden our skill set as creatives. So I couldn't be more proud of Animalistic. And I look at that as our debut, because we really dived into who we were, as songwriters and as performers and things like that. So the process, you're asking about the process in between. So we released that EP. We went on tour a bunch of times and really understood and learned what it's like to be a band. Broadened our skill set and really understood, to wear and to really love all hats, like booking tours and applying for grants and directing videos and recording all that kind of stuff. It's all stuff you have to obviously have in your wheelhouse. And when we came back from those tours, I felt like I didn't really know, as the main songwriter, how to really write a song. I don't know what kind of songwriter I was. So back in the EP, I felt that, any band on the radio would sound good writing these songs, so therefore I'm going to try and emulate that. And that was my process back then. That was me trying to find my way.
Yeah.
And so when we got back from those tours, I really had to dive in deep, and I did that by like kind of writing in a journal, and just nothing really in particular, just about my day and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I turned to those journals and I was like, these are actually songs. And I learned that through that process. I was an introspective writer, and I felt most comfortable creatively talking about my experiences just in life. And then I was like, wow, there's really something here. I'm really connecting to these songs like I have never connected to the stuff I've written previously. And that means that you have something special. And I learned that I was an introspective writer. I learned that I could really relate to the music. The guys could too, obviously. And it grew from there. We put a name to it, Animalistic, and however cliche it seems, I feel that to be animalistic, that word is to be an independent and to be a fighter and a believer and a dreamer and somebody that's independent. And I feel that all these songs, that one word really captures all the feelings and vibes of what these songs are about.
Mm-hmm.
And next time we'll be back talking about our next debut album. So, that's kind of the story between our EP to Animalistic and where we are now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for crafting some of those lyrics, like once you realize that you're an introspective writer.
Yeah.
So do you go back and you view your life as a whole from the past, or did you start writing from like your experiences forward as you were learning who you were as an individual?
Yeah, I would say kind of all the feels that I had kind of just in that moment, the first song on the record, well, I guess the second song after we have this beautiful piano intro written by the wonderful Graham here. The first song is called Animal, and that was a literally an entry about leaving home and going on tour. And so it started, obviously I crafted the lyrics to make it more into a song, but it was in that song I really found something really honest. And so that was current in the moment. That wasn't really from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of those journal entries are about things that we're facing now as young creative individuals trying to figure this whole thing out. And I think a lot of people in their 20s and a lot of young people can really relate to these things. And guess what? It's like the response has been bombastic. We're really seeing on our YouTube people really relating in paragraph form. And to see somebody take the time and write a paragraph about how they relate to it,
mm-hmm.
it's like it still hasn't sunk it in a sense. It's like it almost wants to bring you to tears, because it's like, this is me being so honest in a song, and this is you reciprocating that honesty back to us. It's amazing, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. So.
No, especially in today's social media age where some people have a lot lesser of an attention span than they may have had for the music industry before, to know that they're actually investing in that enough to not only take their own feeling from the song apart from what you're feeling, and to actually take that and grow from it and experience it, but to also take it into words and present it to you is it means that you actually did something good.
It's amazing, man, and we owe it all to our fans. We love our fans, and we love connecting with them on a daily basis. The two most important assets I say are time and access, and we give our fans both. We make sure we give our fans both. Access being, access into our day-to-day lives. That's why I carry around this camera here, documenting our days.
Mm-hmm.
And time by replying to every comment and replying to every DM. And to take the time to, no matter if we have, to do our best, no matter if we get 50 tweets a day, to reply to those.
Yes.
Obviously there's slow days where we can't get back to everybody, but we do make an effort to give our fans both access and time. And it's just we owe it all to them, because we're building this community, it feels like. And our songs aren't on the radio, but we just played a sold out show for our hometown show, and there's a group the whole crowd was singing our song, and that was it was a surreal moment for us to be wow, we're really hitting on something special here, and these people are amazing. And so we owe it all to the people that support us and love us. We love them too.
Yes, very much, because to know that you don't have to take that traditional route of radio, and it's, as was mentioned earlier, where the following of trends, you can follow a trend and maybe the radio isn't going to be happy with you for not doing that because it doesn't fit the scheme or the style that they're trying to do, but how do you trailblaze? How do you open new doors? How do you push forward new music if you're constantly trying to follow something else?
Yeah.
There has to be bands that do that. Probably the biggest example lately was 21 Pilots, right?
Yes.
Then before that, there was Macklemore and the Heist. And back in the day when we were growing up, it was, a Linkin Park Hybrid Theory. These are all bands that didn't fit a format, and they made their own format, and everybody went to that because they saw the honesty.
It's that cult mentality.
Exactly.
That follow.
No, exactly. You have to trailblaze your own path. Yeah. You can chase that dollar, but eventually it's, when are you doing things for yourself? When are you actually expressing who you are as an individual?
Mm-hmm. And people see that, and that's probably why we have for, even though we're not on the radio and we don't have the biggest fan base yet.
Yeah.
They're very dedicated, you know, like Daniel's saying, they do the paragraphs, like, you know, it's almost like a small cult following, you know what I mean? And because people can tell that we actually care. Like, we mean it. We're not just releasing a song and throwing it out to the world and say, hope it does well. No, there's like 5 other things that are connected to this, and there's a music video, and that music video connects to that, and there's a meaning with a 3-line logo, and like, there's a whole story to it, and people get that, because people show that you really care, and they're going to really care and respond to that.
Absolutely.
And this is the only way, like, I can speak on behalf of myself, like, this is the only way I would like to do it. Like, the only way that I feel creatively satisfied, doing it this way. You know, writing songs that are first meaningful to us, and then connecting with our fans through technology that 2018 has presented us, and then to see the reaction by the fans, and then adjust accordingly based on their reaction. And like, that is the only way I want to do it, or I don't want to do it at all.
Yeah.
And so with our stuff, you know, so we're already stewing on the next project and taking it to a place that's completely different than Animalistic, and that is like one of the most exciting things ever. And just coming up with the new, like, I think for myself, I like to think of, like, no matter if it's a music video or an album, people ask me about, like, what's your songwriting process like? Nowadays, a lot of the time, I like to think, I'll use an example with a song, but it translates to everything I kind of do, whether it's, you know, music videos or artwork or anything like that. When it comes to songs, I like to almost think of the end, what I want it to sound like what the end goal is, what if I'm hearing it in my headphones, what would it sound like with the title. Like, we have the title and the track names of the next album. But now it's like, I like to work backwards and fill in those blanks. Like, that's extremely exciting for me. And so I guess the overlying theme here is, like, we find joy and we love every part of the process. And this is the only way I feel that we can do it. That works for us.
So you guys set the bar first, and then you understand what you're trying to work for, and then of course you try and soar above it.
That's right.
So just what you said there, I think that's really important. I think that's something that we're really figuring out. You could probably tell the story a bit better than I can, but we were in New York. We ended up writing a theme song for a Sirius satellite radio show called The Jim and Sam Show. So
yes,
you know,
I listen to Sam Roberts a lot, so yes.
Yes.
So
So anyway, so our theme song is played every morning, and that came off of a whim of Daniel being a big fan of them and saying, you know, what type of value can we add to them? Like, it's a pretty outrageous goal. You know what I mean? So, like, we ended up getting the theme song. Daniel ended up talking to them on the air, got them to listen to it, and they loved it. And we've been on the air 3 times there. We've been to New York already 3 times this year, doing interviews and doing a live performance with them where they did a live in Caroline's on Broadway show, which was awesome. But, like, when we were going to New York the first time, Daniel kind of mentioned, and we were coming off the plane and said, we were just kind of talking about, like, what would be something crazy that we can do? What do you do in New York? And we would think, okay, well, Times Square, billboards. How cool would it be to be on a billboard?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a crazy goal, but now let's reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
So who owns the billboards? Let's find out who their marketing departments are. Let's fire off emails. What value can we give to them? So it's a tradesies.
Yes, absolutely.
Then we ended up getting it. And obviously we can expand on that a little bit more, but like, we had a conversation the other day, and I'm not going to really go into detail about it because it's about the future, but we kind of made this big goal. And I was like, we can't do that, man. Like, are you serious? Like, we're not at that level. Like, sure, we're growing, but we're not at that level. Then if you take a step back a lot of time, break it down, give it some serious thought, all of a sudden these goals, when you turn that one big goal into 10 steps, it's way more achievable.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's very daunting to approach everything that way. I think that every time we release something, we put so much care and attention to detail in it that it's exactly that, is that you set the bar here and then you seek to, it's like, surpass it every single time. And then every time we put something out, I always feel, oh my God, we've accidentally peaked. You know, like, oh no, we put too much into it. And then we keep soaring past it further and further. And that's literally the only way, is you have to convince yourself that you haven't. And you need to keep moving up, you know? And I think that's how we've made it this far. And I like we put out a single and I go, okay, that was huge. How can we put out the next thing? And then we just have to just do it. There's no other way around it. You can't settle for being less than what you've already become.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that is true. That is like, we never want to, go down. I know that sounds like funny, but like it's true. Like we always want to one up ourselves. With this new record, we want to make it double as good as Animalistic. We want to be playing double, double the amount of people at our shows. We want to do the bigger tour. We want to go down to the States. Like, all this stuff is very possible. Yeah. It's just like, with a little hard work and some smarts behind it, we're very capable of doing it in the future.
I was on the phone with Daniel the other day, and I was saying, I'm listening to the record today, and I'm listening to it, and I'm going, this is awesome. Like, this is a great record. We put so much into this, but I can hear the opportunity for growth in it. The record itself is telling me we can get bigger than this. We can get better than this. And it's still something we can all be proud of, and I think that's just our attitude in general. Is it like everything we do just feeds opportunity to ourselves?
Well put.
Very well put.
And I think a big tell, or a big portion of why we've stayed together so long in our quote unquote success is because we understand, at least, and I understand that it's a detriment to creativity and to our journey to compare ourselves to anybody else. And so, it would be easy to beat yourself up, to look at another band that's similar to us, and then look at them and be like, oh, they have like 3 albums out, and like, look where they are. It's that there's no good in that at all. And so, I think no matter what, whether it's you're podcasting or, if you're a band or whatever it is, to understand that you're in your own lane and that there's room for everybody. Yes. Especially now, man. Like, Garrett brought up like the radio. Back in like the 90s, and like, I was listening to there was only a one morning radio show, like, and people fought for that morning radio show. Yeah. But like, and that's not the way it is anymore. Like, everybody just now likes what they like. So like Joe Rogan, his podcast isn't battling Adam Carolla's podcast.
Not at all.
They're both huge podcasts, but they're not battling for the number one spot. They just have their own fan bases, and and people like what they like. And so like, that's how I look at it now. We're not competing with anybody. People love what they love. They're going to listen to Animalistic, and then they're going to listen to the new Panic at the Disco. Yeah. And that is what it is. And that's totally cool, because we're building something that's completely our own, and you can build something that's completely your own, and you don't have to worry about the charts, or it's not doing as good as somebody else's, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, as long as you're satisfied with it, and that you have people that love you and support what you're doing, and you can keep satisfying your creative, fire, that's all that matters, man. Literally, that's all that matters.
And people feed into that, too. As long as you're passionate about what you're doing, that's where the real connection from people comes from. It doesn't matter if it's catchy or if it's popular or anything like that. It's just, if you believe in yourself, people can see that and feel it. And like, that's why we're on stage, and you said it best the other day. You said, I'm up there and I feel like I can't do anything wrong. Yeah. And
because you feel like when you're playing in front of people, they're there for you.
Yeah.
They're there to support you.
And then you feel like the crowd has got your back. If you make a mistake, oh well, they're here to support you either way, right? And it's not scary anymore. It's now just the confidence to get out there and be like, I'm ready to do this for everyone. And they're emotionally, they're at the same level as us. Like, I want our fans to feel like they put the record out just as much as we did. I want them to feel like they've been a part of it, and they're the reason that we've been able to accomplish everything so far.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you guys do really seem to have like a really good touch with your fan base, like you mentioned earlier, where it's just looking at your social medias and everything, the way that you hype even just singles, where like there's pictures of every member, and it's just the investment of time and energy and all that just to put it out, and then also to engage with every single one of those fans and make them kind of feel special, because like, to you, you're just a musician and like, you don't really realize anything, but to them, like, you're a touring musician, And to them, like, they're just Joe Blow Schmo, and it's just like to actually get that interaction from you is huge, and only just makes them want to be more of a fan, make them want to interact with you more, and just tells them that you're real. And in 2018, that's something that people kind of want out of their idols, their celebrities, their musicians, the people that they're paying attention to, because it's easy for everybody to be fake.
Right. I just want to touch on something here really quickly. So since we announced the tour, we've had fans messaging us, and tickets are about $15 across Canada, very reasonably priced. And a lot of fans will ask us, well, can I meet you at the show?
Where's the VIP tickets? Like, where's that extra? Where can I pay that $45 to meet the Faceplants, the guarantee? And I kind of like said to him, like, we're not doing that. Like if you're coming to the show, you're meeting all of us. Like, we're out there in front of the show. We're at the merch booth. I just think it's wrong, especially for like the message that we have. Like, why would you charge somebody extra to meet you? Like, we're on the same level as them. We're only able to do this for a living and to live our dreams because they're showing up. Because they're interacting. So it's like, back in the day, or, there's some exceptions. If you're Taylor Swift and you're playing to 70,000 people, there's no way you can meet everybody. So there is exceptions to that. But I think at the level we're at, or even the next 5 years or so, even if you're playing to a couple thousand, like, I don't see any reason why that you can't go to the front after your show and just shake hands and thank everybody for coming to the show.
Oh, without
and that goes a long way. Because we're it's a team. We're a team. We're a team right now. We're helping your podcast. You're helping us. It's a community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's helping build a scene outside of that, and it's helping build like the connection. It's helping your fans get to know you guys better. It's helping my audience get to know a new group and also see their drive, their passions, and what they're doing, what they're creating, what they're striving for. Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't ever want to put a price tag on our value of us meeting somebody. Like, I just find that very strange. It makes it seem like there's a hierarchy or something like that.
Well, exactly, and it's just, who are you to say that you're worth X amount
exactly. It doesn't
bring
make
that
sense.
when you've already asked them to pay $15 just to come and watch you play on a stage and appreciate your art.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something we strongly believe in. I bring it up a lot because I really believe in that. So I'm really hoping that, I hope obviously we have a lot of success like a Taylor Swift, but I think we really want to fight that. That's not something that we want to get into.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just more real.
I agree with that 100% because, like, even when I used to tour, it's like I would go out before we even played the set, and I would go and shake people's hands and, hey, what's your name? Thanks for coming out. We're the touring band. Really appreciate it. Like, and then after the show, like, you just go up to those people again afterwards, and if you even just remember their name, or even the fact that, like, you just wanted to speak to them, just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, we just appreciate it. Like you'll see tonight, like after we're on stage, we're saying, we got a merch booth over to the side. We are all going to be there. Daniel normally goes first, then we kind of take care of the gear and make sure everything's squared up.
Well,
but we'll be down there the whole time. And we love to meet the people that are coming to our shows and who make our dreams reality.
Are you in a band?
Not right now.
No.
Not since I moved, no.
What do you play?
Mostly bass, but I also play guitar.
Nice.
Cool.
So you did some tours across Canada as well? Or?
Mostly Western Canada.
Nice.
Nice. Really cool.
Basically the point where you guys were at with your first EP, where like we were doing the Winnipeg to Vancouver run, and then...
It's because the drive's so far from Winnipeg to Ontario.
Yes,
or there's Thunder Bay, but it's still crazy.
And it's when you are a band, if you're at that point where you're only drawing 5 people... You have to front that gas money yourself.
And it's a lot.
Especially like these days when gas is $1.30, $1.40.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough. So
I feel you, man.
That's it. We were on the verge of like breaking into the East Coast and starting to like break out into the States and everything, and then I think it was just patience and everything else just sort of took its toll. And
of course, man.
It happens.
Well, the good thing about the East Coast, though, is there's such a big population change over there, and everything's so close that when you do go over there, you can't
Once you
play.
get there.
Well, a lot of the bands on the East Coast won't even come over to the West Coast. They're like, screw it, we'll just stay over here. Because you play, Kingston, Hamilton, London, Toronto, like Ottawa, Oshawa, Montreal. Like, there's so many places to play over there within the driving span of maybe 5 hours.
Yeah.
The closest place from Vancouver is, unless you're going to Vancouver Island, is I guess big city is Calgary, which is I think 10 hours away, 11 hours away, or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
something like that.
Yeah.
And that's just it. It's huge, and I understand why a lot of like bands from other places don't like to try and make the trek across Canada, but it makes it difficult for a lot of bands in Canada to try and make that break, especially because there's that bridge in the gap where it's like you can get big on one coast, but the entire other coast, like, you could try and get booked on festivals, and they'll be like, well, do you have fans over here?
Yeah.
And like, well, we haven't had the opportunity.
I heard some it wasn't advice, the guy just saying, it was like a panel at like a CMW or like a Music BC thing.
Yeah.
And it was a booking agent. I think it was a guy from, I don't remember the guy's name, from Fellman. He was pretty much saying, if a band can make money in Canada touring across it, you can be a successful band everywhere else touring. Mm-hmm. Just because of just the distance and how many shows you can play. If you can do it here and the weather, you can do it anywhere else in the world.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, and that's something that I believe too, and that's why I'm trying to like help nurture the West Coast, like, and help bridge that gap between the East Coast. Is it's because if like that was something that existed back in the 90s, whereas like there was a lot of bands that could survive in Canada alone.
Yeah, not so much anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, it's not that the population's changed. It's not that a lot of other things have changed. It's just like the industry's changed. And like how you reach people and everything else has become different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright, you guys, I still have a ton of questions left to ask, a bunch of things that we're going to get into. And of course, we've already talked about a ton of great topics like your new album, Animalistic, and how your drive and passion has allowed you guys to do things like be on billboards in New York City. That is crazy. Before we get back to more questions, though, I have to go ahead and take a moment to thank the fine Desert Tiger listeners who have gone ahead and grabbed themselves one of our traditional logo style Desert Tiger t-shirts. Thank you guys so very much. Like I mentioned at the start of this episode and like pretty much every episode, this podcast is like 100% fan supported, and without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. You are the lifeblood. I am just completely operating it. You guys allow me to do so much with Desert Tiger, and I am extremely thankful for everyone that reaches out and tells me about their favorite parts of the interviews, everybody that follows me on social media, everybody that shares the episodes. You guys are amazing. And like I said, I just want to take a second to thank those who have taken that extra step to helping me take that next step with Desert Tiger, because when you buy one of those shirts, it goes straight into Desert Tiger. It goes right into my gas tank so that I can travel to get more interviews. It goes into better equipment so that we can bring you better episodes every single week. And I want to thank you truly from the bottom of my heart, those who are allowing me to push this dream even further. So before I go ahead and get too sappy on all of you, we should probably get back into our interview. And before we can go ahead and get back into my conversation with all the members of the Faceplants, we are going to have to take a moment to play another song off this amazing album that they just dropped, Animalistic. I hope that you guys are loving the sound on this one, because I know that I am. So I hope you guys are ready for The World I Know.
Raised in problems of another time than my own. The noise in my head is digging down inside my soul.
discussed a lot of the business side of things lately, so let's get back into the fun of things. So,
that's fun though too.
Well, it is fun. It is
You
fun.
can probably tell that we like the business side a lot.
I love talking shop. I do. So let's get a little bit into the influences. Let's get back into the younger days. Who are the musicians that you couldn't live without in high school? Some of those classic gems that just happen to still.
I think the best way, to do this is probably all individual. And I guess for myself, I saw and I love this, man. I love this story. It's like I saw a couple years ago that I think it was Vice or somebody put out a piece on how the first Tony Hawk soundtrack influenced like a generation of kids. Absolutely. And so I grew up just like skateboarding, playing Tony Hawk. And I saw that, and I was like, oh my god, like that's why I love punk rock and old school hip hop. Like that's why I love it. And so I definitely grew up just loving the Ramones and Sex Pistols and Social Distortion, Goldfinger, Dead Kennedys, and Black Flag and stuff like that. And because I was a skater kid, and it was like that was the music I listened to pump me up and get energized, and just like, it wasn't about the musicality back then. It was just about the energy, and like that's what punk is, and that's why I still love it to this day. It's still like my favorite style of music, I'd say. Obviously, punk like that drew me to bands like No Doubt and The Police and stuff like that, more musical stuff, and that's how I picked up the bass from there. But definitely, I grew up listening to punk rock, and I think although our music isn't punk at all, I like to bring that energy on stage. And like when I perform, I really like to obviously, we all do, give it our all, like our 100%, every single show. And I think the reason why is because of that influence in punk rock for me. And it still holds true to this day, for sure.
Yes, and that's something that I feel is kind of missing in a lot of bands, where it's like just stand there and this, and it's like, where's the energy? Where's the, like, show. If you can't move behind your music, why should anybody else move behind your music?
That's the point.
Yeah. Well, it's like you hear, I mean, like, obviously don't do this, but like you hear stories of like Sex Pistols, like breaking bottles on stage and cutting themselves, and like that was their version of a show, and like putting on a show, and obviously we don't do that, but we still hold true that we want to put on a show for people, especially if no matter how many people are there, 5 people, we're still going to play at like it was 20,000 people, and make sure that that person that's coming is getting their money's worth, and that making sure that they're satisfied with the whole show experience. For in the moment they walk in to, like, after meeting us at the merch table, we want to make it such a positive experience for that person, and give it our all, and that for me derives from that definite punk rock spirit.
And it's really important, what he just said there, just to make sure every show you're giving her. Like you said, like we might be playing to a couple hundred people tonight, or, maybe we played to 5 people last night. Well, those 5 people, if you perform just as well as what you'd be doing to a crowd of 200, those 5 people are going to tell 10 each of their friends, like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. There was nobody there, but they were so good. Well, next time you come to town, there's going to be 50 people there. If you perform just as well there, those 50 people are going to tell all 10 of their friends. All of a sudden, there's 500 people there.
Yeah.
It's just a gradual build, right? Like, if you just, there's 5 people at the show, who cares? Write it off. Let's just punch in, punch out, like a work shift. It's not going to work. People can see right through that.
No, exactly. And that's another reason why you have to bring it right off the bat, especially when you're doing those early tours, and you have to be patient. You have to go for it right from the start.
It's a giant learning experience.
It's a confidence thing, too.
You
have to really believe in what you do.
For me, especially, is a giant hurdle to get over playing shows to where there's more people on stage than there is in the crowd. It's so hard to get past that and think, well, there's one person, it's the bartender's looking at me, and then just thinking, who cares? It's not practice. You're in the moment. You're somebody is here to watch you, and it doesn't matter, and it's
humbling.
It's literally that moment where it's like you go out for your first tour and you think like a lot of people probably do, like, okay, well, we're gonna have a good tour and it'll be a success. And when it's not, it's that sobering moment of like, okay, nobody cares about me. I need to make sure that they do. and then getting over the hurdle of okay, there's nobody here except for these 3 people, and thinking, okay, well, exactly that. These 3 people will tell 10 of their friends.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't feel comfortable charging someone money to stand still and look bored and be disinterested with playing a show for them. That's just not.
And I think, obviously, like our first couple of tours, there was hardly anybody there playing for the bartender. But I think, and obviously we all had that mindset. Everybody does, of like, oh, there's nobody here, we're gonna phone it in. But I think we are now getting a lot better at differentiating the micro from the macro. So on the micro, yes, it sucks. It's like there's one person here. We're spent all this money in gas. So on the micro, it's an inconvenience. Yes. But a lot of people don't look at the macro of it in the sense of like, not only maybe that person's going to tell another person that's going to make your next tour better, but people aren't looking at it being like, well, we're on tour right now. This is going to allow us to say on a factor grant that we've been on tour, and we can write it down like in 2015 we were on tour, and it could just add to the branding of it. That's going to get us the next thing. So yes, I think we have, all of us get caught up in the day-to-day and the micro and maybe how bad or good it is, but not think of the macro and what possibilities and opportunities will come from that. And that's just off the top of the head, like, because factor grants and grants, and they want to know how many times you tour, and they don't ask how many people are at the shows. They just want to know if you've toured. And so I think we've really gotten better at making that differentiation between micro and macro. And it's always about now the long game, the long run. Where are we going to be next year? What's the next thing on the horizon? And I think once you make that switch, you're not so let down on the micro day-to-day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I think we were talking about influences.
Yes, we were. Let's continue with influences.
Do you want to go, Pedo?
Yep. For me, it was kind of my main influences growing up at a young age were a little bit of a cliche story, just stumbling across my dad's records and CDs and getting influence. It all started with a general sense for classic rock and roll, the Police, the Aerosmith, the Led Zeppelin, all that kind of stuff. But even as that kind of like started my foundation for groove and melody, and I just like, even when you're young, you don't really know what you're doing, but there's something going on and you really, really enjoy it. And then from then on, I just my plethora of what I like and listen to now is just crazy. It turned to Ace of Base to anything I could really get my hands on that I found that drove me, and I was banging on pots and pans as a young kid growing up. But I was never stuck in a category per se, or at that young age of growing up, I was just finding what I could relate to, what I could move to, and just generally like Huey Lewis and the News, anything I could put in a CD player and listen to. That's what I was doing. There'd be some where I would press eject and take it out right away, but there was a lot that I'd literally go through like boxes and boxes and just listen and listen and listen. And I just, something about music, even when you're 5, 6, 7, you don't know what's going on, but you know that it's making you feel a certain way, and that, this is, when you're, as a kid, looking at the Backstreet Boys on the TV or something, you're like, I don't know how or what, but that looks fun. And
it's mesmerizing.
I'd like to do that, not just for the sheer factor, but it looks like they're having fun. And it looks like those fans are having fun. I don't know how I'm going to be there being 7 years old, but that's what I want to work towards. And it's just something that's always stuck with me throughout my life of growing up is just music. Music, as other things come and go, music has always stayed there. And now we got to the story of coming across these guys 3 years ago, and it's been, well,
deadly.
Yeah, that's mine.
You guys want to go?
Yeah. I thought we were going to go down the line.
Yeah.
Whoa, Daniel's
Well,
starting over here.
We got a hop.
What kind of line are you talking
Well,
about?
you were saying you want to go last, but is that what you're telling me?
No, I'll go. Wow, I think it kind of all started when my first record that I ever got was actually, it's kind of funny, it was from my grandpa. I don't know if it was on like a throwback HMV, like on like an end cap or something like that, where it was like new releases, but Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park was the first.
He loves this album.
It's the second reference in this podcast.
Yeah. Hey, I gotta promote him, right? No. But anyway, That's they like changed it all for me. I was like, holy smokes, what is this? Then I kind of went into the Offspring. I had this record Splinter. That was another thing. Like kind of going on the punk elements, kind of what Daniel was talking about. Then we went into like this crazy Green Day phase where we just want.
Garrett and I, like our stories, like basically real similar. Like because we've been together since we were like 11, 12.
Yeah.
That's your formative years, you know.
Yeah, when Green Day blew up with American Idiot, it just like took over the world, and it literally changed our life too. Like, you know what? Like looking back, so many people were like, "Oh my god, I hate Green Day" or whatever. But it was just because they were so big. I listen to that record now, and I'm like, "Holy smokes, this is a good record!" Like. Now that you have more insight of life and other records and you've made your own, you think you go back and you're like, this is a masterpiece, dude.
Well, it's a lot of people are mad because they weren't the same as who they were for the years beforehand. But it's just they took a giant step there and they did something incredible.
I don't even know how they did that, man. Like, I don't even know what happened. I heard this funny story that I guess they're friends with I can't remember. What's the lead singer of NoFX? What's his name?
Fat Mike.
Fat Mike. I heard that Mike Durr, the bass player of Green Day, and Fat Mike was having a barbecue, and he came over there, and they were just making the record for American Idiot. And Fat Mike was like, so, like, Mike, like, what do you think the next record's going to be? Or, like, what do you guys want to do? He's like, yeah, I think we're going to start playing stadiums. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, we're going to make a really good record. Like, we're going to stadiums now. And he's like, you can't just say that. Apparently it worked. I guess they were so confident and I don't know if it was them reaching for their goals, obviously, and like, it worked out. But yeah, it was amazing. There's even videos of them doing that in the studio, and it's like, I don't know, you hear stories like that, but about such confidence. Then like you see interviews of them in the studio recording it, and like they have like no idea. Like Billy Joe, the lead singer, is like questioning everything. He's like, oh, I don't know, this is gonna be good. This is so different. Like who knows? Then they turned out to be the biggest band in the world and like changed a generation.
Oh, without a doubt, voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Voice of.
Made Green Day a household name.
Oh, absolutely.
I think for me, it's both my mom and dad listened to a lot of music and very, very different types of music growing up. So I was already open to a huge range. The first one I remember hearing those, my dad always played his music loud. I remember hearing those, he put in Back in Black, and then you hear the bells from Hell's Bells right away, and it blew my mind as it kicks in. And like I listen to it now, and I don't get that feeling you get when you're impressionable and everything, but it's, at the time, I was like, I didn't even know anybody could make sounds like what they were making. Because, you know, you're as a kid, all you hear is little Fisher-Price toys. To go from that to this is like such a jarring switch. And then listening to this other side of this things where my mom would listen to like singers like Andrea Bocelli, but she'd also listen to Eurythmics and just tons of different things. And she was a big Elton John fan. And realizing I'm listening to Elton John and listening like, oh, well, that's a different sound from all this other guitar-based stuff that my dad always shows me. And then I started diving into wanting to learn piano because of that. And then discovering bands like Queen, who really can like change the envelope in terms of like adding vocals and having piano in the music. But then the most important part is not having it be the music. It's not a Billy Joel, it's not an Elton John. It's an add-on to it, which is I think I like to play into my writing style as well. As I don't want to be a centerpiece, but I want to be noticed in a way that fits the music. And nowadays, I still, like the same as Patty has, I still have like a huge like spot in my heart for all of those songs. But now I've branched out into more nerdy stuff, like a Snarky Puppy or like a Wolfpack or something like that. Like Chris was probably going to say the same thing. I hope I didn't take it out from under you.
Don't worry.
But then, don't worry. But then like hearing more sounds and more organic noises from that, and so I'm like, okay, well, what's this? What's organ? And then learning what an organ is, and learning about like gospel music and R&B, and diving into like somebody like a John Bellion, and discovering somebody who can take all of these influences, like what I'm listening to, and incorporate it all into one like masterpiece record. Is kind of what I strive to be, and just saying like I can take every little bit of what I like to listen to but not emulate it and just morph it into my own. So it's very varied nowadays. I do know what I like and I do know what I don't like, but I'm pretty open-ended for the most part.
Yeah, so I guess it's now me.
Yeah.
So like,
Wake up.
I think my very first early influence, or at least the very first record that I remember, or band, was just The Who.
Mm-hmm.
Which for me was like that. Like I discovered that through my parents, kind of like I think most kids do. Whatever your parents listen to, you end up listening to.
It's too hot.
and yeah, like for me, like I remember hearing the studio versions of the records, and they sounded great, just like the sheer power, the energy to the songs and whatnot. But then I remember somebody showing me all the live records, and that's what really blew my mind, because all of a sudden you have a guy like John Entwistle who's playing pure pocket and serving a song in the studio, and then live being literally the number one bass player in rock music, in my opinion. The Aux, like John Entwistle was definitely one of my early inspirations, and just seeing like how so much the holistic approach to the creativity in the music, and also the sort of one of the things like I love about The Who is how like each member had their own thing that they brought to the table, in the sense that if you go watch those old bootleg videos of The Who playing, it's like the bass player doesn't move an inch, and his reason for that is because the guitar player and the singer were all over the stage. And it was kind of like what Graham was saying, where it's like, you know, it's serving the song, serving the purpose, and like you don't have to be the forefront to make something amazing. You have to be part of the team. And I think that's like one of the like early lessons that I like learned from like listening to The Who, and then that kind of stuck with me throughout all the other music I've studied and gotten nerdy with, and I'm just with Graham over here with loving all the really nerdy stuff like the Snarky Puppies and whatnot. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think that like music comes down to the collaborative effort, not only among the musicians on stage or in the studio, but the opportunity to create a moment with the audience. Like, to me, music is like a two-way street of not only creating but consuming. And so to bring that on a real level in any front, from the studio or live, is like my favorite part, and what might have started from The Who. And then of course as a bass player you have your flea phase, you have your whichever, and you go through it, you're like crazy whatever, like Primus, I gotta be the craziest bass, and then you end up like, oh man, like just playing quarter notes feels so good. Just that, like,
you know what, sometimes holding the vibe down is just feels really nice.
That's what we're doing right now. Holding
Holding the vibe.
Alright, you guys, so before we end this off, where can the listeners find out more about you, and where can they possibly send you a paragraph if they want to?
MySpace.
That's right.
MySpace!
Friendster and MSN.
LinkedIn.
No, you can just, we're at the Faceplants on all social media. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at the Faceplants. And youtube.com/@thefaceplants too. To see all the music videos.
Spotify.
And Spotify.
Also,
Apple Music.
All platforms. You
At
can
the
type us in
Faceplants.
Google, everything we have and everywhere we are.
Yeah, we got them all early.
And if you want the website, it's thefaceplants.com too.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Alright, so last question before we end things off. We mentioned earlier that there's a meaning behind the 3 lines.
Uh-oh. Caught.
Let's get into it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So the 3-line logo, it really represents 3 distinct phases of Animalistic. You know, when I was writing the songs in Animalistic, I really wanted to not only, you know, write the most honest and true songs to myself that I could write, but also add on to that too, man. Like really capture different feelings of the record too. And the best way to do that was to write piano bits, I felt, to really set a tone for the record. And so we've been running with the 3-line logo for quite an amount of years now, ever since Animalistic began. But I love that kind of stuff. I love that kind of foreshadowing of like, now the record's out years later and people can either put that together and figure it out, or they don't. You know, and I think that speaks to our real attention to detail too. You know, and it's those little things. Even how we wrote the track listing on Spotify and Apple Music, and all that kind of stuff, and on the record. Every detail is important, and it's little kind of nuggets and little things that people can put together on their own time. And if they do, that's amazing, and they got it. And if they don't, and they want to consume the music in a different way, that's awesome too. But that was the 3-line logo that we premiered years ago. But it's exclusive to Animalistic, and it represents the 3 different vibes of the beginning, the middle, and end of the record.
Fantastic. I love it.
The journey.
The journey.
Thanks for having us, bro.
All right.
Thank you
guys
so
so much for joining me.
We'll see you tonight.
Yes. Sounds good.
Peace and love.
Thank you.
Alright, DTP fam, I want everybody to go ahead and give all the members of the Faceplants a huge Desert Tiger thank you for being on this episode of the show and giving us all the details on the band and who they are as individuals. I am looking extremely forward to their next debut album because you absolutely know I am going to get these driven, motivated individuals inside. I'm already excited to hear what the next album sounds like. If you haven't heard Animalistic, what are you waiting for? Get your hands on this. It is available pretty much everywhere that you can get music. If you want a physical copy, of course, go ahead and hit up the boys. They already told you where you can find it. They already told you where you can find them. What are you waiting for? So now that we've thanked them, we got to go ahead and thank you guys, the Desert Tiger Podcast listeners, for once again tuning in like you always do. I want to go ahead and thank those people who have already hit the follow and subscribe button. I want to go ahead and thank the people who are going to share this episode with their friends because they loved it. To everybody who's ever shared an episode of this podcast, told their friend about this podcast or anything, thank you guys so freaking much. So, as you guys can tell, I am excited about the future of Desert Tiger. We have some of the titans of Canadian classic rock coming up. I'm going to be going to all sorts of different music conferences, conventions, all sorts of things. So lots of exciting interviews on the way, lots of new and exciting guests. The future has lots in store for the Desert Tiger Podcast, and I hope that you guys are along for the ride. So I hope that you guys have yourselves a fantastic weekend, fantastic day, whatever day of the week that you listen to the podcast. I hope that you are out there killing your thing, and I hope that you are creating your own individual and defining yourself for you, because what is more beautiful than that? Goodbye, everybody. See you next week.